Well, welcome back, Devils fans. It is your host, Ace, here on Running with the Devils, where we are talking New Jersey Devils hockey all year long. Please hit that subscribe button, smash the like, share with a friend. Thank you very much. And today is a day I've been waiting for a very long time. I am here with my good friend Jordan in the Devils game-worn goalie mask vault. That's right, my friends. Jordan is a compulsive sick collector like myself and has managed to accumulate quite the array of Devils game-worn masks from over the years. And I am pleased to be in his vault right now, and we're going to show you some of these masks from over the years.
I'm thrilled to be on the channel. Obviously a huge fan of Running with the Devils, and I've been looking forward to this day for quite a while, and I'm excited to share some of these awesome masks with everybody. So I like this mask because it's a blend of, big, bold, popping logos. Here's the big Devil logo on the side, and then intricate, beautiful detail up close. So yeah, that's one of my favorites.
I wouldn't
for sure.
mind taking this one home too.
That's a nice one for sure.
Yeah, a lot of nice little sparkles.
All right, so where do we go from here? Let's segue over to...
This is sick.
Let's talk Kevin Weekes, right?
The Weekesy.
We mentioned Kevin
Weekesy.
A little bit. This one's going to stay here. I love it so much.
You want to just leave it? All right.
We talked about Kevin Weekes briefly earlier, right? In that 08-09 season when Marty went down for a long period of time. Kevin Weekes came up and was expected to be the starter.
I always like this mask.
So Kevin Weekes, right? Like if you were a Devils fan in the early 2000s, you had an introduction to Kevin Weekes via those playoff battles with the Carolina Hurricanes.
Dude, he destroyed the Devils in the 2002 playoffs. After going to the Cup Finals the year before, we got knocked out in 6 after I think Urbe struggled, and Kevin Weekes came in and probably had the series of his lifetime against us. Arturs
Urbe was obviously still on the team, but Weekes really stole the show in those playoffs against the Devils, and he had a mask that looked an awful lot like this when he played for the Hurricanes. He had his big Black Panther on the side, and I like that he kind of stuck with that throughout his career. He came to New Jersey and he adapted the mask. It's got Devils logos on the side here, but he still has his menacing, snarling Black Panther. This mask is super cool. Look at that. Look at that. I don't even know how to describe it.
It's like a little holographic sticker of
prismatic rainbow sticker. The claws of the panther are just super cool, shiny silver. You have metallic paint all throughout. This one is called NJ Panther Morphing. I mentioned that David Gunnarsson of Dave Art names all his masks kind of like an artist would name a painting, and really, that's what masks are, right? Like
original works of art.
I spoke to it earlier when I said like they're a way for the goalie to express themselves. But beyond that, like some people like to collect artwork. You like to collect artwork. You're big into art. I'm not big into art at all. But art on a goalie mask, that's amazing.
That's right up my alley. The best kind of art.
This collection is really special to me because it's players that I watched and admired as a kid, and then growing up, and through the years as an adult. Goalies that I was a fan of, but also like these are, like you said, original works of art by some really talented artists. Like it takes the detail that goes into these masks is absolutely amazing. So this is Kevin Weekes' mask from 2008-2009. He wore it in a handful of games, roughly 8 if I had to guess.
Almost 2 handfuls, not too shabby.
And he also wore it in his final NHL game of his career. So that was in April of 2009, and it was actually right after Marty set the all-time wins record.
Did he have a different mask during 08-09, or is it just this one?
So he had 2 different Devils masks.
What mask did he have the night that he got stuck with the job of snipping the 552 night? Remember that?
Yeah.
He gave him the scissors and him and Marty trying to saw it off.
I believe Weekes started wearing this in around February of that year, so he would have been wearing it for wearing it on the bench for the 552 game. But Marty set the NHL wins record with his 552nd win, dethroning Patrick Roy, who, despite what Ace might joke about at the Marty Golf Tournament, is not the best NHL goalie. I know it was a joke, but how dare you even utter those words? Patrick Roy is second all day to Marty. All day. Can't even joke about it. But I know you were just joking. You and I see eye to eye on Marty, obviously.
For sure.
So Marty set his NHL wins record. So it was an early April game, maybe April 3rd, don't hold me to it, against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And Marty got the night off that night because there's a pregame fanfare in honor of Marty. Marty was getting a painting and a silver stick, and he was being recognized on ice for his 552nd win. So Kevin Weekes was due to get the start that night, and Kevin did get the start that night. I was actually at that game, so it's kind of cool to have this physical memento from being at that game with my family as a young one. Not that young, I guess, but I was still young enough.
Younger.
And Kevin, he left the game with some sort of, I don't know, knee or groin or hip, some lower body injury. He left the game. Marty came in and saved the day on what was supposed to be one of his few nights off. But this was Kevin Weekes' final NHL mask. We all know Kevin from his broadcasting career. He successfully transitioned into a really impressive broadcasting career after his playing days. And so this was his final NHL mask. It's super cool. You can see here, he obviously took a puck off the chin at some point, and it chipped off a bunch of paint. There's a couple game action photos where this mark is white. The equipment staff at some point, colored it in red to try to restore the mask to its original glory. But another thing I like about this mask, Ace, is the cage. Look at the cage.
Yeah, so
every other mask that we've looked at today.
Ombre.
Yeah, absolutely.
Black to red.
Every other mask we've looked at today, and most NHL masks are, white, silver, black. But this one has just this insanely cool blend of black into red. And not to bring up Jacob Markstrom again, but Markstrom's New Devils mask, I think, has a red cage or a blended cage of some sort. So Markstrom is just doing all the right things. He's taking a bunch of cool aspects of these masks.
I'd like to take this one home, too.
That one's beautiful. This one was bouncing around the mask hobby for a couple of years. I passed on buying it a few years ago because I was broke and masks cost a lot of money. And always regretted it. And fortunately, thanks to a friend in the hobby, it found its way back into my hands. So really, really big fan of this one. Let's see who we have next. So up next, we have here kind of like Ari Ahonen, another high Devils draft pick in goal who never panned out. Fortunately for Jefffrazee, he did see some NHL action, however brief it may have been. But what we have here are Jeff's 2011-2012 and his 2012-2013 New Jersey Devils masks. Jeff was taken by the Devils early in the second round, and he was taken ahead of some legit NHL goalies like Andre Pavlik, like Ben Bishop, like Jonathan Quick, Hall of Famer Jonathan Quick. Jefffrazee,
according to Dano, it's borderline Hall of Famer. He might get in.
Jefffrazee was taken ahead of all of them. The only goalie who went before Frazee in that draft was Carey Price, who went like 5th or 6th overall. Frazee went in the early second round. And so he was anointed the goalie of the future. Ari Ahonen in the
There were so many of them over the years.
Ari Ahonen in the late 90s, early 2000s was supposed to be the guy. Marty just kept going. Jefffrazee in 2009, 2010, he was supposed to be the guy. Marty just kept going. And so Jeff, spent a couple years in the AHL. He got some looks in the preseason. This was his first painted Devils mask, kind of like Scott Clemmensen started out with an all-black mask for his pro career. Jefffrazee did the same thing for a full year, his first full year with the Lowell Devils in 2009, which was an all-star season. He played really well. I mean, he backed up that second round high draft pick pedigree with an incredible pro debut season. He made the AHL all-star team. He did really, really well for himself. He's also really well known as University of Minnesota Golden Gopher, allowing like a 200-foot goal from the other end of the rink. That clip went viral back then, but he shook it off. He went pro. He had a solid first season. In training camp, his second training camp, I believe, he was playing in an AHL preseason game, and he took a skate in the neck, Clint Malarchuk style. He missed his jugular by millimeters, is what they said afterwards. So he was
squirting all over the ice.
He was squirting on the ice. Oof. He was bleeding, and so he actually memorialized that, for better or for worse, on this mask. Here's a big stitch, a big scar.
Wow. On
his mask. So, like I said, this was his first painted mask. It was painted by an artist named David Arrigo. You might know him. He actually does a lot of work for the NHL. He paints like live murals at various NHL events. Like I think he was at the Rock one time painting on the concourse. He does work for the NHL at their All-Star games and stuff. He also does masks. So this is a beautiful mask by him. Frazee on the chin, big Devils logo on the forehead. You've got this like metal grate, and there's flames coming through the metal grate. Really, really nice mask. On the back, you got the Team USA logo because jefffrazee obviously played for Team USA. Again, had an incredible run. He was such a highly touted prospect. He was in the World Juniors one year. Canada, USA went, I don't know if it was the gold medal game or what, but it was one of the elimination games, and Frazee was playing lights out for Team USA. I think it was finally Jonathan Taves who beat him in a shootout. So again, I mean, this guy had all the makings of a good NHL goalie. He had the pedigree. He had the experience. It just never really panned out for him. He got stuck behind Marty. He got stuck behind Johan Hedberg in the 2012-13 season. This was his mask. And finally, he got a chance in the NHL. Marty was out. I think he had a pinched nerve in his back. Marty missed a very short span of a month or so, I think. And so Johan Hedberg took over starting duties. Hedberg got pulled in a game in Carolina, and Jefffrazee made his NHL debut in this mask. Played 20 minutes, stopped all 3 shots he faced.
3 shots?
3 shots.
Wow.
And it was his first and his last NHL game. He made it to the NHL. He can tell his grandkids he was an NHL goalie, but and they're
going to be like, we don't believe you, Grandpa. Show us your mask. And he's going to be like, this guy Jordan has it with a bunch of other ones in the shrine.
His career never quite panned out. And it just, it's funny how it works out because the Devils, at the time, the goaltending depth chart was Martin Brodeur and Johan Hedberg, 2 veterans. There was obviously an opening. We now know that Coryschneider came in to fill that opening.
Poor Moose.
Rather than from within the system. But the young goalies at the time were Frazee, who had the high draft pedigree, Keith Kinkaid, who was signed as a free agent out of Union College, and Scott Wedgwood, who was another Devils draft pick. Those were the 3 young Devils goalies who were kind of vying to be the next starter behind Marty. So Frazee got his 20 minutes of action, and then he never played again in the NHL. But on the flip side, a guy like Keith Kinkaid, who split AHL duties with Frazee that season, Keith Kinkaid, I think it was that same week, Keith Kinkaid made his NHL debut. He was backing up Johan Hedberg against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Hedberg got pulled. Hedberg did not have a very good stretch in 2012, 2013. He was really good in 11-12, but in 12-13, when Marty went down and Hedberg had to be the starter, didn't go so hot. And so, Jefffrazee got his chance in Carolina. Keith Kinkaid got his, half of a game in relief of Johan Hedberg against Tampa Bay at home. And look at how their careers went from there. Kinkaid went on to have a pretty respectable NHL career.
He's bounced around all over, but yeah, he's
played like 130 NHL games plus probably. And then Jefffrazee is now, selling mortgages in Minnesota somewhere. So, hate it for Jeff, but love these 2 beautiful masks. Speaking of Keith Kinkaid, let's take a look at a Keith Kinkaid mask next. Actually have 3 of them.
Whoa!
We'll start with his NHL debut mask. So let's put these beautiful Frazees away and we'll jump to Kinkaid.
All right.
So here we are with Keith Kinkaid's 2012-2013 mask. He wore it primarily with the Albany Devils. Like I said, he was splitting time with Jefffrazee in the AHL. But there was a stretch where Marty went down with an injury in that season. Hedberg was elevated to the starter, which meant some AHL guys got a little taste of NHL lifestyle, right? They got called up and got to sit on the bench. Hedberg struggled a little bit, and Keith Kinkaid got to come into a game against the Tampa Bay Lightning wearing this mask. This is his NHL debut mask.
I always like that one.
This is an awesome mask. Let's just talk about the paint for a second. Look at that. Look at that devil. On the side, that is a devil, and he is playing goalie. He's got his goalie pads on. He's got his stick. He's flipped his mask up and off. His mask is tumbling through the air on the other side here. This is just an absolutely beautiful mask. This was painted by a guy named David LaRue. His company is called Deal Airbrush. He actually painted the Frazee NHL debut mask as well. So these are both, this is cool, right? Like this was the tandem in Albany that year. Frazee and Kinkaid, both of them painted by David LaRue of Deal Airbrush. During the pandemic, he's a super talented artist. He transitioned into custom sneakers. He makes custom sneakers now.
Interesting.
I think he'll still do goalie masks.
I might have to reach out to this
goalie
man.
masks on request, but he does really cool custom sneakers now. So he got his start in goalie masks, and now he does some other stuff. But anyway, these are the two masks from 2012, 2013. Kinkaid went first. I think it was March 5th, maybe, against Tampa. Hedberg got yanked. Kinkaid came in, got roughly half of a game. Baptism by fire. Steven Stamkos breakaway right off the bat, and he stopped it. It was an incredible save. Maybe we can splice in a clip of it. I think they've been scrubbed from the internet. You wouldn't think stuff from 2013 is hard to find, but
that's the archaic.
Yeah, I think a clip
ago.
of that may be hard to find, but. Keith Kinkaid made his NHL debut in this mask. It was the only NHL game he would play in this mask. Then, like I said, a couple days later, like 3 or 4 days later, it was Frazee's turn to back up. Devils giving the different goalies a chance to back up. They were calling him up and down, rotating him back and forth. They both got into games of relief. Kinkaid debuted, went on to have a pretty nice Devils career, bounced around a couple of teams after that. Frazee debuted, never played again. So it just goes to show you, this guy was the
tale of two
pick.
tendies.
This guy was unsigned or undrafted and then signed as a free agent, and look at how things panned out for him. So there are those two. So this is the Keith Kinkaid debut mask. Let's put this down, and we'll grab 2 other Kinkaid masks really quickly as we kind of wind down this little mask tour.
All right.
So we are back from the beautiful cases with 2 more Keith Kinkaid masks. We have his 15-16 mask, and we have a 2017-2018 mask. This one is another one of my favorites, honestly. I think this is top three favorite in my collection. Maybe top 5, but it's hard. It's like, do you have a favorite kid? Like, no, you love all your kids. You love all your masks.
I think everyone has a favorite kid. Just so you guys know, I think I'm the favorite kid of my family.
Yeah,
now.
well, this is coming from the kidless Ace, so take it from a father of 3. You love them all the same. But this mask I love a little bit more than the others, because these eyes right here. This is a David Gunnarsson mask. I think he calls this like Glow FX or something. He names all of the effects on his masks. These eyes glow in the dark. So we'll splice in a photo of these glowing in the dark, which is just a super cool idea / innovation for an NHL goalie mask to have it glow in the dark. You've got that mean looking devil on the front. He glows in the dark. You got the devil tails on the side. It's just a simple, clean, very sparkly and metallic-y mask with a really, really cool feature. And Keith Kinkaid wore this in a lot of games in the 2015-16 season. It was the only mask he wore that year. He also wore it for Team USA in the World Championships. After the season ended, he had a really good year that year for the Devils as backup, and he got the call to participate in the World Championships. And so he wore this mask in a Team USA uniform as well. Keith was, kind of notorious for ditching his mask, right? Think about all the times Keith Kinkaid lost his mask in the middle of a play,
Yeah.
The buckles would come off and he'd shake it off. Or,
very easily.
He'd look for a whistle and he'd shake it off. And it's funny because I actually remember, I didn't own the mask at the time, obviously, because Keith was still wearing it, but I remember watching him in those World Championships, and like every game he was just maskless, flopping around the ice. Bare head exposed.
The most game action photos of a goalie in history with no mask on.
This mask conked off of the ice so many times that season. It's unreal that any of the paint is still left and that it's not all chipped off. You got some chipping, but it's just an absolutely beautiful mask. One of my favorites from a season where Keith really established himself as an NHL goalie and went on to get some international play as well. That leads us to this one. Look at that Taz.
I love that.
Look at that Taz. That is super cool.
And I love the glossy on the mat.
This is his mask from the following season, I believe. And this was his backup mask. So for some reason
17-18
or another, in 17-18, he got more than one mask painted by David Gunnarsson of Dave Art. This was his backup mask. So all NHL goalies, as if you watched Ace's Markstrom mask video, all NHL goalies travel with a backup mask at every practice, at every home game, at every road game, because you don't know if something happens to your primary mask, you need to switch to another mask, and it's got to be a mask that you're comfortable with. So this was Keith's backup mask for that season. And most of the time, goalies don't really use their backup masks. There's usually not a situation that arises where they have to ditch their main mask, but
very rare.
But in this season, Keith did have to turn to this mask in one game. It was an April game, I believe, against the New York Rangers.
April 3rd. And he took very astute of you. And he took a Pavel Buchnevich shot off of the cage of his primary mask. And I don't know. It must have been compromised.
It must have been compromised. I don't know if it was dented.
They're like, you can't go back in with that
bent
mask.
Out of shape.
Take Taz out there.
And so he took Taz out there. He took this really cool Taz. I don't know if you can see that, but that is a super cool Tasmanian Devil. One of the things I actually really like about this mask is the Taz, I don't know if it's coming through on camera, has a really nice glossy finish. And then all this, lightning and electricity and this brick wall over here has a matte finish. So the juxtaposition of the matte with the glossy.
Juxtaposition, vocab word of the day.
Is just super cool, and one of the things I love about this mask. But anyway, he took this mask out for, about the final 5 minutes of the second period in that game against the New York Rangers. So it's one of the few times an NHL goalie actually has needed to turn to their backup mask. And for that, I'm super grateful because, this mask is a beautiful work of art.
Beautiful.
Whether he wore it in a practice, whether he never wore it and it just sat in his locker, but the fact that this made it into an NHL game is really, really cool. And a fun little tidbit for you, what happened when Keith was wearing this mask in the few minutes he was wearing it is Taylor Hall was awarded a penalty shot. And so, I still remember watching that game, and I remember Keith, he stayed out on the ice, he skated around behind the net and kind of leaned on the back of the net with this beautiful Taz mask, and Taylor went down the ice and ripped one past Henrik Lundqvist.
The Queen.
And I think you own that puck, right?
I do own that puck. We might show that on a future episode of Museum Monday.
Yeah,
Taylor Hall. By the way, Taylor Hall, not to go on a total tangent, but gets a lot of flack from the fan base.
Taylor Hall does get a lot of flack from the fan base, and I don't think it's deserved, to be honest with you. He
kind of lost me when he did it, but I'm not going to discredit a hard season. He dragged a not horrific, but
he did
a subpar New Jersey Devils team single-handedly to the playoffs.
And you know who else really helped them get to the playoffs that year? Keith Kinkaid. Keith Kinkaid had a really good 2018-19 season.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He played a lot.
Taylor Hall had around 90-ish points, and the next highest score on the team, I think, was Nico with 50 or 51.
Nico was miles behind. Taylor Hall can put his hand to his ear all he wants. The fans
that was in poor taste.
Maybe a little bit, but the guy was frustrated, and I don't blame him. He was on a sinking ship.
We might have to do a video together in the future about the mysterious case or the polarizing figure of Taylor Hall in New Jersey Devils history.
The fact that Taylor Hall won a Hart Trophy for the Devils, the only Hart Trophy in their history, with names like Brodeur, Stevens, Niedermeyer. The Devils had some really big stars over the years. None of them even came close to winning a Hart Trophy.
I think that was kind of a product of, because we had all three of those guys, it kind of probably, the credit or whatever you want to call it may have been kind of divided among them. People are like, oh, they're a unit.
That's right. Marty probably deserved one at some point.
Oh, for sure. But some of those Vezina seasons he had were ridiculous.
And don't get me started, on all of the detractors. Oh, it was the system. It was the defense. Marty was a stud, man. Defense aside, Marty was a Hart quality.
Marty was the third defenseman. Changed the game, and they made the trapezoid because of him.
But anyway, I'm not going to hate on Taylor Hall. He got the team their one and only Hart Trophy. So be it. But, the star of the show here is this beautiful Keith Kinkaid.
It's a beautiful piece.
Tasmanian Devil mask. One of my favorites. Just beautiful, beautiful artwork. So I think that leaves us with only one mask to examine.
Last one to go.
And I think it's, let's tie it into current events. This video is going to come out probably a couple days after the Devils Global Series games in Czechia against the Buffalo Sabres. Hopefully they leave with 2 wins.
Would love to see it.
But this next mask was actually worn the last time the Devils went overseas for a Global Series event. So let's go grab that one.
Go grab it. What do we have here?
All right, so last but not least, we have this beautiful eddielack mask from the 2018-19 season. Eddie wore this for the global series. You know, the Devils, they had a preseason game against SC Bern. Eddielack was the backup goalie for that game, so he wore this mask for that game. Then they had their global series opener against the Edmonton Oilers. Eddielack also dressed for that game. He backed up Keithkinkaid and wore this mask over in Europe. That's actually, it's another Dave Art mask, and David Gunnarsson hand-delivered this mask to Eddielack himself. There's actually a really neat picture that ran with an NHL.com article of Gunnarsson and Lack holding this mask together. Eddie opened up the preseason that year in 2018 with a couple games back here in North America, and he was wearing his mask from the previous 2017-18 season when the Devils acquired him mid-year, and he got into a couple games. He had some memorable performances. He carried that mask over into the preseason, and then when he flew overseas for the Global Series, he got this beauty hand-delivered. This is actually his abstract expressionism mask, as it's called. Mr. Art over here might have a few words to say about that.
This is actually, so it's kind of painted in the style of a very known painter by the name of Jackson Pollock. His style is his signature style is, I would say it's kind of like splashes of paint, if you will. His works his originals, I think, sell for like 10 million plus. I think there may have been some that have sold like for 50 or 100 million.
So if anyone wants to make a $10 million offer for this,
but this is that style with the splashes and the streaks. Super beautiful mask. I love it. It's a very nice one.
It is. And if I remember correctly, I think Eddie, in part of that article for NHL.com, he said he gave Dave Gunnarsson a lot of creative freedom on this one. I think Eddie was like, I don't know what the heck abstract expressionism is, but it looks cool. And it does look cool. You've got these big Devils logos on the side here with all the paint splatter. You've got the Swedish chef here. Obviously, Eddielack is of Swedish heritage, so you have that Muppets character.
Give me up close.
He makes an appearance on a lot of Eddie's masks, and this one is no different. The back plate is pretty cool here. We got the Swedish crowns, Eddielack's father back there, and Ace, this one might look a little familiar, right? I think this one used to reside in your collection before
sadly,
we made a deal.
This was a part of my museum. I never planned on parting with it. I love the masks. I still have a couple in my collection. You guys have seen them, but Jordan came across a special piece and kind of held me hostage. He knew that I really wanted the item.
That's not at all how I remember the negotiations, by the way.
He knew that I had this mask, and I basically was not going to get the other item, which I will reveal in a later video, a great piece, New Jersey Devils history. But, we had to come to an agreement, and sometimes they say what a good deal is when both parties walk away dissatisfied.
I walked away very satisfied. And for the record...
Yeah, of course he did. Look at this beautiful mask I gave him.
For the record, there was no hostage situation. They were very, very amicable negotiations.
Oh, yeah, super amicable.
And
it probably took 3 days of nonstop texting.
And with all due respect to Eddielack, who is a great guy and was a pretty decent goalie, Ace walked away with the piece from a Devils legend, from a key Devils playoff moment. So I think both sides walked away pretty happy here.
Well, satisfied and dissatisfied at the same time.
But yeah, no, I don't blame you. It would sting to let go of this mask.
But you are the mask king, and so I thought that while I enjoyed it, that I think the historic item that you had belonged better in my collection, and this belonged better in yours. So, a deal was made, it's now in the it's in the vaults.
I can't disagree with that. This is, it's kind of a theme of the video today. I showed a couple masks that were the players' last NHL masks, right? We saw Scott Clemenson's last NHL mask. We saw Kevin Weekes' last NHL mask. We saw Jeffrazee's last NHL mask. Not to
cut you off, but I think Eddie also wore this in Binghamton, right?
Yeah, he did. So in the 2018-19 season, Eddie started the season with the New Jersey Devils. He never got into an NHL game that year. He was sent down to the AHL. He played a couple games for the Binghamton Devils, and then injuries kind of took over and sidelined him, and that was the end of his career. So this was the last mask that he wore in his professional career. Like I said, he started the year with the New Jersey Devils. He wore this for warm-ups for a few games at the beginning of the season, including during the Global Series. Then he wore it with the Binghamton Devils. And now it sits here with me. So, it's a beautiful piece, and thank you for making sure it ended up where it belongs.
Nah, it belonged here. I mean, make it hard for anyone else to get a taste. But no, really awesome going down memory lane of some of these beautiful works of art, talking about these, backup and journeyman sort of goalies over the Devils' career history, rather. And obviously, as everyone knows, if you were a goalie in the Devils organization during the Martin Brodeur era, that was just an unfortunate situation to be in. But some of these guys will live on forever in your beautiful mask museum, and I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and give us a tour of them.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I think it's cool how each mask has a story behind it. Each mask is a work of art, and we've got masks representative of guys who never quite made it, like Ari Ahonen, and guys who certainly made it, like Coryschneider. I mean, Coryschneider played 69 games in that mask and had probably the best season of his Devils career in terms of save percentage. I mean, he didn't have offensive support in front of him. But my point is no mask, regardless of the name of the player. Big name player, small name player, it's still a really cool piece with a really cool story, and I appreciate you taking the time to let me ramble about these masks. Obviously, you can tell I'm pretty passionate about them, and I really enjoy them, and it's been fun talking to you about them.
Awesome. Look for Jordan in some future videos. I'm trying to get him to do a couple things. Maybe some, stuff your face type videos. Maybe some other
We're
adventures.
Negotiating my salary at the moment, so
it's not big. And by not big, I mean it's non-existent. Anything else? Any other closing remarks after the goalie tour here?
No, I think the only thing that I probably have to say is like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. And until next time, let's go Devils.
Let's go Devils. Please still be on. And it is. Bang. Wait, give me one to put on real quick for the thumb. We got to come up a little closer. Wait, are we queued up?
I don't know.
Or do you think our heads are remotely level?
Yeah, I think so. Why are we doing this again?
This is for the thumbnail.
Got it.